Good morning. Today's Bible study comes from Matthew chapter 20, and it reads as follows. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and sent them into his vineyard. About 9 in the morning, he went out and saw others standing in the marketplace doing nothing. He told them, "You also go and work in my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. He went out again about noon and about 3 in the afternoon and did the same thing. About 5 in the morning, he went out and found still others standing around. He asked them, "Why have you been standing here all day long doing nothing?" "Because no one has hired us," they answered. He said to them, "You also go and work in my vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, "Call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last ones hired and going on to the first." The workers who were hired about 5 in the afternoon came and each received a denarius. So when those came who were hired first, they expected to receive more, but each one of them also received a denarius. When they received it, they began to grumble against the landowner. "These who were hired last worked only 1 hour," they said, "and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the work in the heat of the day." But he answered one of them, I am not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give you the one was hired last, the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money, or are you envious because I am generous?" So the last will be first, and the first will be last. Just to break this down quickly before we really get into it, the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner. And the whole problem here is that there's workers needed. And the landowner hired workers. And it didn't matter if he hired them early in the day or late in the night. Or, let me put it a different way, it doesn't matter if you came to God 35 years ago or you came to the Lord now. We all receive the same payment if we are found to be worthy. And that is the inheritance of the kingdom. So this parable tells you that it doesn't matter if it was 35 years, if you do it in the middle of 35 years, or if you did it today. Your inheritance is the same kingdom. The last will be first. The last will be first. God does not punish you for coming to him later. Everybody who is found worthy will receive their inheritance. And when you look at this verse here, 15, and then I'm going to break it down some more. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money, or are you envious because I am generous? That's a very strong verse because in this parable, it speaks to the Lord has the authority to do what he wants. It's his kingdom. All is his. Everything is his. And all the Lord wants you to do is accept him and then become faithful and obedient and follow his commandments. So the part where it says, "Or are you envious because I am generous?" Woo, that's back on man. That's back on us, the workers. We are the workers. And it falls back on us. And man gets envious. He's bothered with this because I've been doing this work all along. And they getting the same thing I get? Yes. All you're working for is to get into heaven like they are. And why would you be envious when you got another worker added that can help out? Yeah, they might not have been doing it for 30 years or 40 years, but they're doing it now. And your job is to do your part. Don't worry about the other part because you don't own the kingdom. That kingdom belongs to the Lord. So the Lord gets to make that choice. That's his call. That's a short, abbreviated breakdown of it, but I'll go into a little more detail now. But that is crisp and clean, and as Sprite would say, and no caffeine. But verse 1 speaks for the kingdom of heaven, um, and it just compares it to being the kingdom of heaven is what it is. His vineyard, the vineyard is simple. Um, that's where we're working at. We're working in the vineyard. We're in the world working. And we are to not only help find workers, but the Lord is going to see workers out there. He's going to see disciples out there that haven't accepted him yet, that are looking upon him and calling upon him. And he'll have somebody go say, hey, are you working? Hey, oh, I'm sorry, you disciples ask that stuff. Yeah, the Lord does that. So when it speaks to verse 2, and let me go back on my page of the word. Come on back. When it goes to the second verse and it says, he agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and sent them into his vineyard. He agreed to pay. That's your inheritance. You getting paid an inheritance to go to the kingdom of heaven. And for the day and sent them into his vineyard. Even though this speaks to time, here we are really talking about our work daily to get to the kingdom. And we're sent into the world to work. About 9 in the morning, he went out and saw others standing in the marketplace doing nothing. Uh-oh. He sees those who are not working, have not accepted him, and he told them, you also can go to work for me in my vineyard, and you'll get the pay. It says, I will pay you whatever is right. So they went and worked. So he came out a little later and found some more workers, us disciples. He went out again about noon. The Lord is looking for you. And about 3 in the afternoon, the Lord is looking for you. And he did the same thing. And the same thing is meaning, he said, and I will pay you whatever is right. So they went to work. About 5 in the afternoon, he went out and found still others standing around. So it shows you that the Lord keeps coming back, looking for workers. He is looking for workers all the time. There is work to be done. And he asked him, why have you been standing here all day long doing nothing? Why haven't you been calling upon me and working for the Lord and bringing disciples to me? And he said, because no one has hired us, they answered. So he said to them, you also go and work in my vineyard. So he's going to hire them. He's going to bring them into the kingdom. So go do some work. Go in that vineyard and work. So when evening came, or the end of time came, or judgment day came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, Jesus the Christ, call the workers. Jesus is going to call the workers, and he's going to pay them their wages. Now, these are the workers, beginning with the last ones hired and going on to the first. Now, remember, I think I said a few days ago that the Lord never speaks in the greatest. He always speaks in the least. God recognizes the poor and the lowly in the least. The workers who were hired about 5 in the afternoon came and each received a denarius. So when those who came who were hired first, they expected to receive more. Yeah, I've been doing this longer. I've been working longer. So obviously in my mind, I've been working harder. So I should receive more than them. But that wasn't true, because that's not what he said he was giving them. So when those came who were hired first, they expected to receive more, but each one of them also received a denarius. Hold up, I'm getting the same reward as the ones who just started working? When they received it, they began to grumble against the landowner. How can they get more than I do? How can they get the same inheritance? How can they get in the kingdom of God and they ain't been in it as long as I have? These who were hired last worked only 1 hour. They said, and you have made them equal to us who have been borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day. Yes, you've been in the trenches. Yes, you face more. But you forget the Lord does not play favorites. The Lord does not care about your title. The Lord does not care about what man thinks or man's traditions. He is looking at man to accept him, to be faithful, to be obedient, to love him above all, and to love his neighbors and to follow his commandments. And it doesn't matter if you started 40 years ago or if you start this very day, as long as you do it. But he answered one of them, I am not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Uh-oh. Didn't you agree to work for your inheritance into the kingdom of heaven? Take your pay and go. All you want to do is get in heaven, so take your inheritance and go. I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I gave you, which is what we are all working for the inheritance into the kingdom. And then this speaks to God's authority. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? I'm going to just put this in perspective. How many times has somebody came up to you and dug in your wallet or purse and told you this is what they're going to do with your money? And you probably said, Minister Jeff, you're crazy. But answer that yourself. If they can't tell you to do with your money what they say to do, then why do you think you got the ability to tell the Lord what to do with his kingdom? Why? And then the second part goes right back to man and our selfish ways. Or are you envious because I am generous? Can you be mad because the Lord is good to everybody? Can you? Why would you be? You can't be mad because the Lord is good to everybody. That is who the Lord is. You may not select him. You may not want to be with him. You may not do anything for the Lord. But you can't change the Lord. The Lord is faithful to the righteous and the unrighteous. He showers the righteous and the unrighteous. He died for all sinners, which is all of us. All of us. So that part is completed on his part. Man may fall short, but the Lord, he has never fallen short. So, the last shall be first. Many that in the order of time are brought last into the kingdom shall be first in the rewards. Just know that. And don't be bothered with that, because all we want to do is be brought into the kingdom. We just want to be in glory with the Lord. So as you see here, the same pay, the inheritance, is the same pay that you will get if you started 50 years ago or if you start today. Just come to the Lord and be a worker in his vineyard and do the work and do all that he commands us. And your inheritance is the same as mine or anybody else's. And the Lord loves you, because you see how many times that they went out to find workers. It didn't stop in the morning. It didn't stop a couple hours later. It didn't stop. It was going on all day. So we're looking for workers all the time. Amen.